Somewhere on this earth, the tallest mountains reflect onto white sand. A rope bridge, older than living memory, is still the only way children get to school. And people in one valley live longer than almost anyone else on the planet. This is not a story someone invented. No filters, no reconstruction, no mythology dressed up as geography. It is real ground, real water. Real people crossing real bridges that should not still be standing. It is in Pakistan. And before this video ends, you will understand why that sentence carries more weight than most people ever give it. There is a lake here that swallowed an entire village whole. There is a bridge that moves when you step on it. And there is a city where nature was not pushed aside to make room for buildings. Nature was the blueprint. Stay with this. Before this journey begins, one thing needs to be said clearly. This is not mythology. It is not computer-generated imagery. Every image you are seeing is real, and it exists along a single road. The Karakoram Highway is one of the highest paved roads ever constructed by human hands. It runs from China deep into Pakistan, cutting through terrain so extreme that simply standing beside it feels like standing at the edge of the world. But this road is not new. Long before the asphalt, before the machinery, before the borders that exist today, this same corridor was a living vein of the ancient Silk Road. Merchants carried silk and spices through these passes. Monks carried scripture. Armies moved through the same narrow gaps between mountains that you are about to travel. The journey ahead follows that same route. What lies along it will feel like entering another world entirely. The Karakoram Highway does not ease you in. It begins with sheer cliff faces dropping hundreds of meters on one side and raw mountain walls pressing in on the other. Gravel switchbacks curl upward through terrain that seems to reject the very idea of a road. Clouds drift at road level here, not above it. This highway climbs to over 4,600 meters above sea level, cutting directly through the Karakoram mountain range, where Pakistan meets China. It took 2 full decades to build, and thousands of lives were lost in the process. Along its edges, multiple ethnic groups have lived for centuries in near-total isolation. Ancient petroglyphs carved long before any asphalt existed still mark the rock faces beside the road. The highway is not just infrastructure. It is a living archive of everything that came before it. And the road itself is only the beginning. The Karakoram Range fills the frame completely. Peaks rising above 8,000 meters push through cloud cover like something that refuses to be contained. Glaciers stretch across the valleys below, so vast and so slow they appear frozen mid-collapse, suspended between movement and stillness. At the center of this range sits K2, the second highest mountain on Earth. It does not announce itself. It simply rises. To the south, Rakaposhi dominates the valley floor, visible from villages thousands of meters below its summit. The Balti communities who have lived beneath these mountains for generations do not describe them as geological formations. In their oral tradition, the peaks are living presences. Avalanches are not accidents. They are warnings. The mountains do not need to be interpreted or explained. They are enormous. They are ancient. And they are entirely indifferent to the fact that humans exist at all. Then, without transition, the stone disappears. Fairy Meadows arrives like a contradiction. A wide, alpine meadow sitting directly at the base of Nanga Parbat, the 9th highest peak on Earth. In summer, wildflowers push through the grass. Marmots move between the taller patches. A small glacial lake sits near the tree line, and locals say that at dusk, fairies gather at its edge. The contrast is almost disorienting. Moments ago, the world was gray rock, thin air, and silence that felt geological. Now it is soft, green, and warm. This is one of the most photographed meadows in Asia, yet fewer than a fraction of a percent of the world's travelers have ever physically stood inside it. Some places are famous and still unreachable, but the strangest part of this region does not live in the grass, it lives in the ice. The music fades, almost completely. What remains is blue-white ice, stretching further than the eye wants to follow. No villages, no roads. Nothing moves here except the glacier itself, and that movement takes centuries to notice. The Balti people who live near its edges call it the River of Spirits. Not because of legend alone, because of sound. Glaciers crack, they groan. Deep, slow fractures that carry across still air like something trying to speak. On quiet mornings, those sounds travel far. The ice here is ancient, older than any name given to it. There is nothing to arrive at in this place, no viewpoint, no marker, no resolution. This is simply where the journey pauses. The cold holds. The silence holds longer. And somewhere beneath the surface, the glacier keeps moving, indifferent, unhurried, and completely unmoved by the fact that anyone is watching. Then the valley opens. Green terraced fields climb the hillsides in careful layers. Apricot orchards stretch across the slopes in full bloom. Above it all, the ancient Baltit fort watches from the ridge like something that has always been there because it has. This is Hunza Valley, and the people who live here have drawn the attention of researchers for generations. Studies have documented unusually long lifespans among the Hunza community. Some attribute it to their diet, to the altitude, to water flowing directly from glacial streams. Others say the explanation is something less measurable. Near Ganesh village, the cliff faces tell a different story. Thousands of inscriptions cover the rock, left by travelers passing through during the Silk Road era. Sanskrit, Kharosthi, Chinese. This valley has been a crossroads of civilizations for over 2,000 years. The people here carry that history in their daily lives, quietly, without ceremony. The Baltit fort has stood above this valley for over 700 years. It was once the seat of the Mir of Hunza, the ruling family of this small mountain kingdom. Restored in the 1990s, it now stands as one of the most intact examples of Karakoram architecture anywhere in existence. Below it, the town of Karimabad moves at a pace that feels deliberately unhurried. Apricots dry on rooftops. Children walk to school along stone paths. For centuries, this valley was entirely cut off from the outside world. The Karakoram Highway only reached it in the 1970s. Before that, Hunza was, in almost every practical sense, its own kingdom, operating on its own terms, answering to no one beyond its peaks. But the valley's peace was not always guaranteed. What happened just downstream changed everything. And then there is the lake. In January 2010, a massive landslide buried the village of Adabad and collapsed into the Hunza River below. The river had nowhere to go. Over the following months, water rose steadily behind the natural dam. Villages upstream were slowly swallowed. 20 kilometers of the Karakoram Highway disappeared beneath the surface. What remained was a lake of impossible turquoise, stretching through the valley like something placed there deliberately. It is genuinely beautiful. That is worth saying plainly. So is this. Beneath that water, a village still exists. Roads, walls, foundations, the lives that were built there. Boats now cross where vehicles once drove. Tourists photograph the color of the water without always knowing what lies beneath it. The lake is real. The village beneath it is also real. Both things remain true at the same time. And then there is the bridge. The camera moves toward it slowly. Wooden planks, some missing entirely, others cracked down the center, strung across two cliff faces above a fast-moving river. There are no railings. The bridge sways with the wind before anyone even steps onto it. This is not a theme park attraction engineered to feel dangerous. This is the Hussaini Suspension Bridge, and it is real in the most unforgiving sense of that word. Local children cross it to reach school. Adults carry supplies across it. Multiple international outlets have named it one of the most dangerous pedestrian bridges on Earth. The cuts come faster now. The river below, a plank shifting underfoot. The rope pulling taut. But here is what stays with you. The people who cross it every single day do not consider it remarkable. To them, it is simply the way across. The camera pulls back, and there they are. A cluster of sharp, silver-gray peaks rising from the valley floor, like the spires of a cathedral no human architect could have designed. Local people call them the Stone Cathedral, and standing beneath them, it is not difficult to understand why. At golden hour, the light turns the rock faces amber. The shadows between them deepen to near black. The contrast is almost violent in its beauty. At the base of the cones, a small village carries on its daily rhythm entirely unbothered by the spectacle above it. Cooking fires, children, livestock moving along narrow paths. This is one of the most photographed landscapes in Pakistan. International photographers travel thousands of kilometers to stand exactly here. And yet the village has no hotel, no tourist infrastructure, and no particular interest in becoming famous. The mountains are simply where they live. The landscape shifts dramatically. From stone spires and suspension bridges, we arrive at Islamabad. This is the third payoff planted at the very beginning, the city where nature covers half the ground. Pakistan's capital was purpose-built in the 1960s, designed entirely from scratch, with green space written into its foundations as a structural requirement. Today, between 40 and 50% of the city's surface is parkland, forest, or garden. The Margalla Hills rise directly behind the city limits, close enough to feel like walls. At the center sits the Faisal Mosque, its tent-shaped roof visible from across the valley, one of the largest mosques in the world. The Pakistan monument nearby holds the shape of a four-petaled flower when seen from above. The Lok Virsa Museum preserves the crafts, music, and oral histories of every major culture in the country. This is not a city that forgot nature, it was built around it. From Islamabad, the road bends east into Azad Kashmir. Muzaffarabad arrives first. Two rivers meet here, the Neelum and the Jhelum, their confluence visible from the Red Fort, standing above the city on a ridge that has watched over this valley for centuries. Then Lipa Valley, terraced rice fields stepping down the hillside, wooden Kashmiri houses with carved balconies. A valley so saturated with green, it earned the name Little Switzerland of Kashmir. Then Neelum Valley, apple orchards lining the road, a river running alongside for kilometers without interruption. And at the far end, Sharda, ruins of an ancient university town that once drew scholars from across the subcontinent. Stone foundations where knowledge once gathered. The pace slows. The journey is almost complete. One place remains. The locals call it Heaven's Mirror. And then there is Radi Gali, No road reaches it. You ride a dirt bike as far as the trail allows, then continue on foot. The lake sits at over 3,700 meters above sea level, surrounded by snow peaks on every side, its surface the color of deep emerald glass. It does not appear in most travel guides. It carries no official legend, no tourism board description. But the people of the Neelam Valley have passed something down through generations. On full moon nights, they say, music rises from beneath the water. Fairy songs, they call it. The voices of a world that exists just below the surface of this one. The narrator will not tell you whether that is true. It is simply offered the way the lake itself is offered. Still, cold, and completely without explanation. This journey moved between opposites the entire way. Ancient and modern, harsh and gentle, documented and mythical, real and almost impossible to believe. Northern Pakistan does not ask to be understood. It does not perform for cameras or arrange itself for visitors. It simply exists, at the edge of the map, at the edge of what most people believe is still possible on this earth, waiting for whoever is willing to make the distance. The lake stays on screen a moment longer. Still, cold, completely without explanation. If this place stayed with you, if any part of this journey felt like something you needed to see more of, follow along. There are more places like this one, more roads that feel like they should not exist, more valleys that have no reason to be as beautiful as they are. The world is larger than most maps suggest.